Hi guys, what's up, what's down, what's sideways? So here is my first ever anatomy of a fight scene. But for this one, I'll do bits and pieces of the full proof of concept. Just a bit of background story. This was done on a $300 budget, and I think quite a lot of that went towards like swords and venue hire. Uh, it was a day and a half of shooting, two-hour training sessions to take the actors from how do I hold this to you're going to see a six-person single take fight scene in here, and then yeah, so no props other than the swords we had. Location was someone's house, and we put this together, and I had a lot of fun on it. The guys did great. We were doing rehearsals on the day where we could sneak it in, and there's even a fight scene in here which was prepped the night before, but the actor slash director only had like half an hour to go through it. So let's have a look. I really like the intro music. So Ethan wrote, directed, and starred in this. And I know that school. Look at them. If you're ever on the Gold Coast and you want to do some sword, check them out. Love the music. And the title screen. Don't know, just about the colors, just really like it.
Oh, this tea was fantastic. Thank you, Poppy.
You're welcome.
Mum said she wanted us inside before lunch. We should probably go inside.
Yeah, but I don't know how I can eat anything else after stuffing myself
I'm
with those delicious cream
not
donuts.
sure
Just
how
a little
much
bit more than overthinking.
acting prep
You know
the
it.
girls
It's
had.
still really good
And this is
though.
Abigail and
Right, they
Phoebe,
want
they're
hot sauce
sisters.
and crime for your
I know they had one
If you are
session with
too
an
posh, there
acting
is a
coach
special deal.
a couple of weeks
Oh,
before,
even if you're full on my
but
berry donuts.
the
I'm
directors will be able to
I wonder what Mum's made.
I think she's planning
share that kind of stuff.
That's my favourite.
Everything is your favorite, April.
True, but that's because food is so good.
Food is so good.
Cream donuts especially. I don't know how I'm going to be able to tell Mum that I won't be eating her lunch because my sister made such delicious cream donuts.
I don't know how. She probably won't be too pleased that you chose my treats over her meals.
Maybe, but it was worth it.
What was with it?
I'm sorry, Mum, but I'm afraid that I won't be able to eat any of your lunch because April made such delicious cream donuts.
Oh, they are very good. Did you save me one?
No.
What a shame.
Alright, so I'll admit, this was interesting for me because I'm usually behind the cameras, and the only time I'm up front is if I'm in front of a class or competing in a tournament. So this was a step out into a whole new world doing this kind of thing for me. First time I saw it, I went all shades of red, and I love it that as a founder of his own martial arts school and a practical mindfulness coach, I can still have those sensations of like, ah, oh yeah. Um, this, I love this. This prop we made on the day, that was just so good. It's alpha, and you can't see it too clearly, but it's looped like a chain. It was very nicely done. Um, and you can start to see the kind of swords we're going to be using. This is polypropylene, so it's theoretically indestructible. It's not a toy sword, but it's a really good training sword. It has a bit too much bounce for a real sword, but just means you get to train other weapons. And the first time we shot this, Rachel here, who's playing Miriam, her response is was the best because she'd forgotten what I was going to do, and then I was so quiet coming up that it was just this pure, genuine reaction, and it was great. We didn't know until I think on the day that there was going to be a shove scene. So Rachel, we had a quick lesson like, okay, Rachel, you're gonna get to shove me, and she's worried about hurting me or that kind of thing. It's like, no, no, it's all good. Just put your hands on and shove. Um, one of them, one of the takes, she actually did it, and it was so good. I staggered back quite a bit. I don't know if this is this one. So you just got introduced to one of the first raiders there. That's raider number 1. That's Troy. Love how it just appears out of nowhere. It's great. That was raider number 2, Christy. And you'll see a bit more of her later. Okay. Okay. Fight scene. Let's go. So the sounds you're hearing are actual sword cuts. We didn't go and get like sword sounds off the internet or a program. Those are actually me doing sword cuts over the microphone. Because I wanted to hear what it would be like to have a real sword cut on screen, and I put it forward to the director and was like, yeah, let's have a go at it. So those are actual real sword cuts. That's what a sword cutting sounds like. You can get a whistle with the polypropylene if your edge alignment's right, but a little bit hard to pick up for the distance. And what Rachel's doing here is large swings, designed like, oh, I'm tired, I'm weary. It's just the goal is just to make contact as soon as possible. And she's actually going for me for these. I managed to convince her, like, Rachel, just go for me. Have at me. So my brief was, James, it has to look like you're so much better. So I was like, okay, what happens if I just don't draw my sword? And all the sword responses I was doing to the swings were actual real sword evasions that we practice in our sword work. It made it a little bit harder because there's the step down from the concrete. So there's a whole a lot of dynamics going on, but it just shows, like, for me who likes to practice sword, you don't ever want to always practice on a flat surface or if there's no raises or step ups, because in a real fight, your land is always going to be up or down. And we come to this part here. So Christie's about to give a good whack to the side of the head. So this was prepped on the day. I think we had 3 minutes, something like that. And Abigail here, you can see her leaning towards the strike, which is not what you usually see. You'd see the impact and the whiplash happen. So that part happens here, but they did really good for like less than 3 minutes. By the way, we're going to come up and there's no other cues. The only cue she's got is Christy making contact. Enter Ethan. This will be over soon. You wonder why you resisted in the first place.
I resisted because of you, Marcus. You're not the man.
I'm going to draw attention to this, and now we can forget about it. We went to uh, film this, and this was the first time that Rachel and I had got to work with each other, and it was really interesting. I'd got my lines to the point where I could do any physical activity doing them, uh, as my acting coach had been teaching me. Um, and then we got to the point where like we went to practice here on set, and I was like, yeah, my brain was like, yeah, you might think that you knew them and you could do them with actions and take any direction, but I've just decided to forget them all and your cues too. Uh-huh. So that was a fun experience. I turned to the director and like, I, I, I promise I had them all down. I did. I've been practicing.
Man I once knew.
You're right. He was weak and pathetic. Now look at me. I'm faster, stronger, and smarter. I'll go back there just to show something. Dot, 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 dot. So I had the... I will find it. Ah, this this here is me being told to try and do some, like, to have the sword out in a threatening way. Um, Generally, I wouldn't be pulling the sword out to pat my hands with it. Um, that being said, having a saber or a machete waving around your face can be quite disconcerting. And I just thought I'd point. Where are we? You're right. Aha. So I have the sword edge up, and that comes from drawing a katana, which is a Japanese sword. And you have it up so that you can select a full 180-degree positioning to draw from. So if it's edged up, you can drop it down. You can quickly change it to draw horizontal, or you can do edge down and draw up. Edge up, draw down. Yeah. So, and then the thing about it is I'm quite comfortable doing it with other swords as well, like the Chinese saber. So this is a Dao, which is what this shape is. Um, Provided its own little interesting things trying to draw it out of the sash, because we didn't have a scabbard for it, so we just had to have all the swords out. But that's why you see me have it edge up, is because I'm prepping to draw it. And some people will say that you can't draw sabers quickly, Chinese sabers quickly. Um, to that, I'd challenge you just to have a go with a hard edge scabbard, and not hard edge, like a solid scabbard, and you can do it. I can actually draw faster with my straight sword, with a double-edged sword, than I can with my katana. So it's a handy little trick. So here I am, menacing, making sure not to get my fingers over the edge. Now look at me. I'm faster, stronger, and smarter. Yeah, so Ethan had the sword in his hands. We'll just take artistic license and say that it was in a scabbard in his in a belt, or he was about to. It was in a scabbard, and he had it pulled out, ready to do stuff with it. But what we're looking forward to. So this, like I said, this was all done on a $300 budget, and part of that included these polypropylene swords. The full budget that we're going for is going to include full wardrobe, location sets, as well as a whole range of weaponry that's going to look a lot more realistic. So anything from the plan at the moment is swords, axes, if I can get those in there. I have a plan for like a warhammer or axe, and a couple of pole arms as well. So in the full short story that we're looking to do, that's what we're going to have in there. So, you know, we're going to look the part. But it'll be good to see the different weapons and how they interact with each other in a fight scene as well.
Cruel, ruthless, vicious.
perhaps my methods scare you. They should. So, have an acting coach? We're working on it. Also, I feel that wasn't my best lines and delivery, but um, as I'm as I'm delving a little bit more into the acting side of things, it's good to learn that it's not how you feel you did, it's what the director or the person who's going to put it together feels is the best for the story to move forward. So it's a whole new learning curve going in and acting, but got an acting coach, and you'll be pleasantly surprised by all the acting upgrades on my part for the short film. Okay, okay. What you're about to see is a fight scene that's single take. So it's a single take fight scene. Every just about every time we did this, it would go from Ethan entering as the hero all the way to engaging with the villain. It's a straight run. And these guys did it with 2 2-hour training sessions spread over 2 weeks. And they were working on choreography by the third hour. Um, we had a little bit of rehearsal time on the day, but these guys did so well. The only person who's done really any sword training is Christy over here. And Christy's the assistant director. She was on this. She also helped prep the choreography before we gave it to the actors. And she's also the an acting coach who was helping us on set. So she was doing a lot. Okay, so this is the part that really looking forward to sharing with you guys. I'll just come back. Um, if I knew how to work YouTube better, I would show this to you in half the speed. But there's some really interesting things from my perspective in this piece. So these two are going to do it's choreographed fighting, but these two had the hard part of they're attacking on each other's offbeats, which is something you do sometimes when you're working 2 versus 1. Is one word would be going like the 1 and 2 and 3, and the other person is going on the 1 and 2 and is working on the offbeats, which can be hard to do, and these guys got it down in those few hours. So they're doing offbeat strikes towards Ethan's character, which means Ethan, instead of having like the timing gets harder, so he has to keep moving his sword to each beat. So whereas they're going 1 and 2 or 1 and 2, he's going 1 and 2 and 1. So it gets a bit harder there for him. But they did really good. And then the two that are going to swing around, which is Josiah and Glenn, their hard part was timing it so that it looked like, you know, they were doing something, like they're looking for an opening, while not doing that very awful thing you see in films of turn fighting. And like, I could have stabbed the good guy in the back, but if I do that, the story finishes. So I wanted to have it in such a way that, like, they're the appropriate distance away to enter, or they're waiting to see an entry, which is why we have moving around. Um, so we'll keep going here. Their directive was to aim for each other. So um, my school of training is to aim for the part that you're going for, which can be quite different from other cinematography styles or filming styles. But I put it forward to Ethan. He said, we can do it safely. Let's do it. So these guys are actually aiming for that part. Um, you won't find that they're aiming for the sword in front of each other. They're actually aiming for the part they'd want to touch, and that means when you see someone deflect it or move around, you're actually seeing a more realistic pacing. Sorry, distancing. Christy's coming in here with a stab, and you can realize you can't see my fingers. You can see here she's going for his exposed flank. Ethan realizes his flank is exposed, can't step fast enough, pulls something in between. And over here we've got Josiah and Glenn coming in. Now that cut there did make contact, but it's super light, so the guys were training to keep all the energy in their body and not in their sword, and that way we can have it so that the distancing was a little bit more real. Josiah over here, he did a bit of practice the week before. The first time I met him was on set because he had to swap out for someone else. And he picked this up really quick. So I had no training with Josiah except for this part. Ethan was able to go through and work a bit with him. So he comes in here. So after seeing that one, I actually came over after we called cut because I saw he wasn't injured, but I came over and like, "Are you okay, Josiah?" And they're like, "Yeah, why?" And it's like there was this beautiful cut to the neck, you know, where you're able to stay ahead of it. And he goes, "Oh, it didn't make contact on that one." So that was great. They got their timing right, the camera angle was right, and it fell into place. The other reason I like to train people to target properly is because if you can target properly, then you can target anywhere. So if you need to target this far from something for camera, you can. But if you don't have any if you don't have any training in targeting, I you can start seeing people like, why would you swing when you're so far away that there's no chance of you getting hit or hitting something. So by working on like where would you actually target, okay, I'd target here, or I target here, or I target here, you know, that kind of thing. They can then work out the proper distance. Here comes Glenn. So he was up on the rise with me. He's come around. Father and son having a battle here. One. Okay. Ethan's fingers have slipped over the edge. They didn't while they were up here, but now they're over the edge. We'll just take some artistic license that he's got a glove on or something, but not what you'd usually do. You wouldn't put your fingers over the edge. But it's really quick, and it's only if you're used to looking at things that you might pick it up. I'll also point out the sound. So the sword cuts are real sword sounds. And that tinny kind of, like someone's doing something in a tin cup, is actually the sound of metal on metal. Because I did that as well. So we found two solid pieces of metal because we we were in lockdown in Brisbane, so I didn't have my swords on me. So we found two solid pieces of metal and made a collection of metal on metal sounds. Does sound a little bit thin. Something we are working on. Had a chat with Ethan, like, Ethan, you can see the bad guys over here, but you want to just check that those guys are dealt with, and ideally you'd want to keep their bodies in between you and the other threat, because at least you've got some distance and you can create a more favorable position for yourself, which is why he does a search around. And you can see that the girls from here have run off. So this is one scene. You can see it's come in straight up to me. So my brief is, you're super good, and you're so on top of it that you've got emotions, but you're slightly bemused by the fact of, like, why are these people even trying this? Don't they know it's futile to resist? This is also a real stance. So the sword's not up in guard because it's deliberate. This stance is, I want someone to attack me. And the next strike you see with the sword tip is actually going to go to my face, which is something you don't generally do in these kind of things. But I've had enough training and I knew what he was doing, that all the variables were in my favor that he could do that. The other thing is, this is the fight scene that I think we had less than 30 minutes on the day I showed Ethan this. Okay. So he stabs for my head. Really wish I could do this half time. We'll work on it. So he stabs. Back into side of blade, deflect. Leaves me deliberate... used finger again. Leaves me deliberately open. You can see... So I know it's unlikely his sword's going to go below. But if it is, I can actually flip my wrist around to catch. So he's going to come towards my head. Also, I'm super powered. Well, I've got additional strength and stuff like that. So I took a little bit of creative license in that area, because if I'm souped up wearing my magic bracelet, then there are going to be things that I'd be able to do that a normal swords user may not decide to, and err on the side of caution. Whereas, if I'm slightly arrogant, well trained, and magicked up, then I can do a few other things. But I don't take too much liberty with that. So he comes in, I bounce the sword over. Now we're about to see something that is a big no-no done a certain way. Aha, here. His swords come in. So once again, I've led him, like, ooh, once again, I'm using my finger. Ooh, look at my leg here. Yeah. He comes in. Now this part here, you see this a lot with beginners. They pull someone else's sword towards them. So if a sword's coming in, they will pull the sword to them as opposed to direct away or to stop. What I'm doing here isn't pulling the sword towards myself, is I've got a shield out, and so the sword's actually going to meet my sword, and then I'm going to continue my momentum and direct away. So that's what happened in that moment there. I left myself open. He's turned that cut into a stab, and I've gone round to try and stab him. Okay. Unless I was trying to break a stalemate. Let's say I'm dueling and I'm I've got to break a stalemate. I can't Nike defense out. I can't, like, a whole bunch of variables. It's very unlikely I'm going to stick my sword in the ground because it means it's no longer in my hands. I can't use it. And I know it's kind of like a no dura, but sword in ground means not in my hands. So once again, showing the characters, like, I'm on top of this. And what's funny, in the prep for this, I threw it into the ground, and it was just, oh, it just worked for me. Like, throwing it into the ground, it stuck there. It was so cool. Went to do it on location, and the ground was so soft that I couldn't throw it hard enough into it to make it work. Um, I could a few times, but where we ended up, like, I think over here I could, but where we ended up over here, I had to stick it in the ground. So I guess it also made it a bit more emphatic that, I'm sticking this in here. You can't phase me in that area. So it comes in. Is there a whole bunch of stuff that Ethan's character could have done? Yes. What we decided to go for was he realized he was outgunned, and he's just going for a very like a one chance strike. The whole pullback thing here is part of that desperation, because if your sword's all the way back here, then, like, whoever's closest to whoever's face is going to win. So I could actually get to his face before he got around. If we go back, it also depends on how he got the sword up there. So he did a circle, which isn't too bad. It means that he did a shoulder wrap, which means he could actually bring it down on the other side and cut up. So it gives him the option to fire from 180-degree facing. This one is just, he comes in, he charges, he misjudges his distance, and I'm underneath. This hand here, that hand would have gone here. If I had have done this move as a real fight, it would have gone there, and the rest of this would have gone very differently. There's so many things I could have done here. Plot armor is what we wanted to stay away from. I opted to not go for the groin because there are times when, like, it might be an idea not to go for the groin, and also would have extended the fight scene. If I had have gone for the groin, we still may have been able to play it out as I had. He may have been able to recover in time, but we've also got a certain amount of time. So usually in a fight, hand would have gone to groin. I really like that move. That move is great. His response is pretty accurate too. Like, that one stuns you, and it can do, it can affect you quite adversely on that one. It's one we'll use in self-defense to rattle someone, if not make them pass out, or chuck them to the ground. So he's got struck. Once again, I'm trying to play that impassive person, like, why are you even bothering? His stumbling there is pretty good. The only thing he didn't do, which you might see in a normal somatic response, is have his hands come to his head. But the stumbling body forward would pull his hands anyway, so that's fine, because all of these fights were done on a slope, and none of them were rehearsed other than on the day on a slope. We just didn't have time. So he was gonna die. His death was imminent. Maybe he would have lived, but it was about to get either cut or stabbed. This move here, I would have extended the cut into this and then stabbed. He's stumbled away, which is good. He's moved his center. And then Rachel, playing as Miriam, has called my name, and that's distracted me long enough. to allow Ethan to run away, or the hero to run away. What I do like is that this big swing here. There are times in a sword fight where you know you're done. Um, it's a real visceral feeling. Even it, you don't have to be injured to know you're done. You just know you're done. I was moving about mid pace with a friend one day, and he said, "I want you to draw and try and cut me." And I was like, "Okay." And he's like, "Just mid strength." I was like, "Okay." So I drew and cut where his head was. By the end of my strike, he had crouched down, and his sword was also um, in a sheath as well. He had drawn his sword and had the tip at my heart, and I knew I was dead. Like there was no I was gone. So there are times when you know that you're gone, even if you don't see it. Your body will tell you. So him moving his center and doing a shielding swing to just try and offset that imminent. Yeah, so you see how the sword went through here. So if I had brought this sword any closer, his sword would have met it, um, but he wouldn't have been able to deal with the stab. But he did the good thing of he continued to move his center and move off screen. I check back to see the character Miriam, and then we have Ethan running off to join the girls. So, would we throw our sword over a fence? Well, if you can't stick it in a scabbard and you want it on the side with you and you're panicking, yeah. So there's a lot of things in here that like we've been able to go through and review and work on. And I'll just play it here. So he runs off. And you can see the cast there. So we have mum and daughters playing mum and daughters, myself as the bad guy, and Ethan, who's the writer and the director, and the person who handled, as far as I know, quite a lot of the post production, plays the hero. So he had to do a lot on the day. And then we've got the four raiders. So Troy and Christy, Josiah, and Glenn. And then we come down to the crew. So director, assistant director, photography, camera operator, sound engineer. That's me. Also helping me put these stuff together was the rest of the Phoenix Arts team. So I had Gabrielle, the director, and my wife, Christy. Now I make it sound like that's all of Phoenix Arts, but that's all that we had working on the choreography and fight scenes for this one. So like I said, that was done with a really small budget, and I think most of that went into venue hire for training and kitting us all out in those polypropylene weapons. So the next one that we've run the Kickstarter campaign to do the full short film on, because there's 3 short films to be done. So with the Kickstarter campaign, we're looking to get even longer training, like 2 2-hour training sessions. These guys did amazing, and it was good enough to put up to here, but it's not the same as 6 or 12 weeks of training. Like, give me someone for 6 to 12 weeks, and you'd see the difference just them doing the same thing. It also means we'll get to have props that look like weapons. So your swords, your knives, your axes, your hammers, your pole weapons. with the funding, it means that we can actually have them not just using the polypropylene. I personally love the polypropylene, but trying to work that onto a movie is a bit like they don't have metal. So it's pretty cool. And then the wardrobe. Oh my goodness, the wardrobe is just the child in me who loved like Robin Hood and Zorro and that. Like the wardrobe that we got planned. There are cloaks involved, guys. Swords and cloaks. Looking forward to it. So yeah, feel free to like, to share, subscribe, leave a comment on which part you liked or which part you'd like to see more of in the short film, and just your thoughts. We've got the Kickstarter campaign where there'll be a link somewhere. But look, thank you very much for letting me share this with you, and I just want a big shout out and thank you to the cast and crew, to Ethan for giving us the chance, and to the Rock Solid Entertainment, the production company, and to those who helped me in Phoenix Arts, Gabrielle and Christy, for putting this together. So just thank you, everyone involved. You all did awesome. I look forward to seeing what, with a bit of money and extra time, what we can make with the short film. So thank you very much, guys.